Hello everyone, today I'll be doing something different for this channel, and for the month of October and also The Walking Dead's anniversary later this month, I want to do a Walking Dead iceberg. And now for those that don't know what icebergs are and don't know the concept of it, basically the top of the iceberg is the surface level. Those are topics that are explained and confirmed and just everybody knows about throughout the community, and it's just very well known knowledge. And as the tiers go by, right, the lower and the deeper we go in the iceberg, there are going to be more obscure topics and mostly unknown topics by the Walking Dead community. And a lot of these theories and a lot of these tiers were taken from Reddit, and some of them are just simple fan theories, some of them have been teased, and some of them are just very obscure topics that were in the Walking Dead main show. So this is going to be a long video, so sit back and relax and enjoy the Walking Dead iceberg. And now, before we actually get into the video, I'd like to ask y'all to like, share, and subscribe. And again, thank you guys so much for the growth. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask y'all to like this video as much as you guys can. It helps a ton. And also, YouTube has a new feature that is for smaller channels such as my own, and this option is only on mobile, and it is called Hype, right? It should be in the comment section or somewhere there, right? It's basically just to promote small-time creators like me. And if you enjoyed this video and if you enjoyed the iceberg, please hype up the video. It helps a ton. But without further ado, let's get right into the video. Now, starting off with tier 1, and the very first topic of this tier is Rick Grimes' disappearance and CRM capture. Now, of course, if you go back a few years, right, this topic was very unknown, and if I were to make this iceberg a few years back, this would be all the way down to probably tier 3. But now, because of The Ones Who Live and just everything that they explained about Rick Grimes being in the CRM, it is very well known. And basically, this just indicates and references Rick Grimes' sacrifice on the bridge and Jadis taking him to the CRM. And now, back then, a lot of people had different theories, as if Rick was Major General Beale or if Rick was an experiment done by the CRM. But after The Ones Who Live, we know Rick's entire story in the CRM, so this topic it just basically explains itself. And now the next topic in this iceberg is Negan's redemption and Dead City events. And now this is referencing Negan's redemption arc in The Walking Dead main show after the lineup and after season 8 of The Walking Dead, where Rick finally defeated Negan in All Out War. And during season 9, 10, and 11 of The Walking Dead, Negan did everything to fit into the group, and he tried his best to redeem himself by, of course, being like a father figure to Judith, and also moving on and having a new wife, which is named Annie. And Dead City is another big talking point of Negan's redemption arc, because a lot of people were thinking that Negan was going to go back to the way he was in season 7 of The Walking Dead, but that was completely untrue. And the part where Negan redeemed himself in Dead City season 1 was where Negan traded himself to the Dama for Herschel. So Herschel was able to come back to Maggie, and Negan basically sacrificed himself to protect Herschel and to get him back home. So in my opinion, right, I just want to touch upon this topic a bit more. I believe that Negan is redeemed, and a lot of people in the community think that he is not, right? People think that Negan is still selfish and he just cares about himself and he's going to go back to his old ways. And also, we have to talk about the elephant in the room, which is Glenn's death, right? Glenn's death was a big moment in the Walking Dead main show. Some people put it in top 3. And of course, right, like, he was a season 1 veteran and he fell in love with Maggie. They were about to have a kid together, and then the lineup happened and Glenn was dead from there. And Glenn's death was a catalyst for everyone hating Negan, including Maggie, right? So in the show, Maggie and everyone else hates Negan for killing Glenn and Abraham, and in the real world, right, in the Walking Dead community, everyone hates Negan because of Glenn's death. But I do have a video on my channel which breaks down Negan's whole story and his redemption arc. It's a 1-hour long video, so I'm going to be linking it on the title card on the top of this video, so after you're done this, you could go on and check that video out. And now the next topic in this tier is Daryl Dixon's journey to France. And now this topic is just referencing Daryl's whole journey to France, right? It started in season 11 of The Walking Dead in the finale after Daryl found out that Rick is still alive by Judith. So then he goes out and he basically just looks for Rick throughout America. And in Daryl Dixon season 1, it is confirmed that Daryl has been all over to America, right? He's been to Texas, he's been to every single place in America, but he was not able to find Rick. And now, of course, as we know, the CRM is very secret, and the CRM's whole secret and everything like that is deeper in this iceberg, so I'll be touching upon that topic later on. But Daryl's journey to France starts from there, where he's looking for Rick, and then he's eventually kidnapped, and he's shipped off to France with a bunch of running walkers, and then he escapes the boat, but then he ends up in France anyways. And there's really not much more to talk about Daryl's journey in France, unless, like, you touch upon Laurent, where everyone thinks that, he is the Messiah, and he is the savior for the whole world, and he's the one that has the cure, right? And Daryl's journey in France basically is just that, right? Him protecting Laurent, him doing everything in his power to get Laurent to safety, which it does end in season 2, where Laurent is able to fly back to America with Ash. And the next topic in this tier is Maggie and Herschel's conflict with Negan. This topic basically goes hand in hand with Negan's redemption arc, right? And just to reference Herschel and Maggie's whole conflict with Negan, it's because he killed Glenn in the lineup. And we all know that Maggie always had a gripe with Negan, but in season 11 of The Walking Dead, we see that Herschel points a gun at Negan, and he asks Negan that, my mom told me that a bad man killed my father, are you him? And Negan confirmed that fact. And also in Dead City season 1 and season 2, we still see that Maggie has a gripe with Negan, but Herschel tells Maggie to let it go. And all of that basically concludes with Negan sacrificing himself technically to save Herschel's life and to bring him back home, and he gives himself to the Dama. And also we see that at the end of Dead City season 2, Maggie and Negan end up working together, and Herschel joins the Dama. But there is this fan theory that a lot of people in the community, myself included, have been talking about, is that Negan might end up getting Rick's comic death. And now, back in season 11 of The Walking Dead, the showrunners did confirm that they are going to adapt Rick's comic death some way. And we all thought that it was going to be Ezekiel or Aaron or somebody during the Commonwealth arc. But now that we're seeing Herschel going down a darker path and how Dead City is really shaping out to be, it is very possible that Negan could die by the hands of Herschel, and Negan could get that Rick comic death that we've all been, quote unquote, waiting for, right? I don't think any of us want to see Negan or Rick or Daryl dying, but if they really do have to adapt that story and that death, I think that this is the perfect way to do it, with Herschel shooting Negan like how Sebastian shot Rick. And now the next topic in this tier is the Commonwealth arc. And now this topic is just referencing the entirety of the Commonwealth arc and what the Commonwealth actually is. And just a quick rundown, the Commonwealth was introduced in season 11 of The Walking Dead, which was the final season of the main show, which makes the Commonwealth the very final arc for the Walking Dead main show and also for the comics, right? The Commonwealth was the final arc of the Walking Dead comics as well, and the Commonwealth in the comics was actually more like the CRM, right? It was bigger in scale and they had their hands in pretty much everything. But in the Walking Dead main show, right, they nerfed them down because the CRM is a thing in the main show. So the Commonwealth isn't as big as people hoped it would be, but they are huge and people do think that they do have some CRM ties. And at the end of the arc, we see that the group took over the Commonwealth and they put Pamela Milton in prison. And now that's it for the surface level of this iceberg, which is tier 1. And now let's get into tier 2, which is below the ice. And the first topic for this tier is Carol's rumored fate after Daryl Dixon. And now this is referring to a popular fan theory that Carol could potentially die at the end of Daryl Dixon. And this has been foreshadowed quite a bit in season 2, where Carol was getting visions of Sophia, right? She was hallucinating her own death as well as a walker. And I've heard a theory that At the end of each spin-off, right, so Dead City and also Daryl Dixon, a major character is going to die at the end of these spin-offs when these shows conclude. So it is possible that Negan could die at the end of Dead City and Carol could die at the end of Daryl Dixon. But with season 3 of Daryl Dixon, we see that Carol has found love again, right? She has a new partner. So it could mean that, she's going to be moving on, right? She could stay in Spain for all we know, or she could bring Roberto and his father back to America. Either way, I think that Carol is going to get a happy ending in Daryl Dixon, but if that's not the case, then it is likely that Carol could also die, right? She could remember Sophia some more, she could get some more visions, and also, like how I mentioned before, in season 2 of Daryl Dixon, we saw Carol as a walker. So, it's 50-50, but I don't think that Carol's gonna die, but, I could be wrong there. And now the next topic in this tier is CRM's research possibly tied to global outbreak containment. Now, I'm not completely sure what is this referencing, right? But from what I think, this is referencing the CRM's whole 500-year plan on how to rebuild and reshape the world in their image, right? What Jadis referenced in The Ones Who Live to Rick. And also in World Beyond, we did see something called Project V. And now Project V is a bioweapon which was dropped down on different communities to kill a lot of community members and a lot of people, and then they send in a horde to take out the rest of the members. I think that that's what this means, right? A global outbreak containment, meaning taking out a bunch of the communities, right? A bunch of people that are outside of the CRM, so that there could really not be any more threats towards the CRM, and have the people in the CRM leading the new world. And now when you talk about outbreak, right, and containment, that could be referencing also the zombie virus itself. And so far what we know, that there's no cure, nor there's a way to take out the walkers in big numbers, except for probably nuclear weapons or just bombing massive parts of communities and massive parts of the United States, right, to take them out in huge numbers all at once. But I mostly can't find a source for this topic, so I can't really touch upon it specifically, but I just gave you guys what I think this is referring to. And now the next topic in this tier is reused sets from earlier seasons appearing subtly in spin-offs. Now at first I did not know what was this even referring to, right? I thought that they were talking about Daryl Dixon, Dead City, and The Ones Who Live, which I don't remember anything being reused in those seasons. But when I dove deeper into this topic, I found out that in Fear the Walking Dead, they reused an exact scene from season 6. So specifically in season 8, they reused a scene from season 6, which is in the kitchen, right? When Victor Strand, he makes his own community, right? And they have a shot of a kitchen and everyone working in there. It is taken directly from season 6, where Teddy's community is in the kitchen as well, and they're making food. And I believe that instead of omelets, right, they give Victor some other sort of food. I don't really remember this all that much, but from deeper research and stuff like that, I found out that this was a reused scene. And of course in the Walking Dead main show and also Fear the Walking Dead, they have to reuse sets, right? Because, like, for example, Alexandria, Hilltop, and all these other communities, right, they have to reuse those sets, right? Those are reoccurring sets. So from what I think this is really referring to is reused scenes, right? Frame to frame scenes, which I think is totally lazy, right? And of course it's very cost effective, and it's a quicker alternative than just shooting a brand new scene for, like, basically the same set, right? If they just tweak it a bit, and if they just shoot an entirely different scene for something so small and subtle, right, of course that is going to cost money one way or another. And also you could just chalk it up to AMC being cheap, and also Fear the Walking Dead, especially season 8, having a lot of huge issues. So I know that everyone has their gripes with Fear the Walking Dead, and this should not be a really big one, right? I think that there's much more that Fear has that we should have issues with, and with the writing and the storytelling and the character developments are all over the place. And now the next topic in this tier is a very interesting one, and this has been a big fan theory throughout the community, and that is Daryl's immunity speculation. And now, as we all know, when Daryl was introduced in season 1 of The Walking Dead, he was planned to die at the end of that season. He was also planned to die in the lineup against Negan, which everyone was, but I was hearing some rumors and theories that Daryl was genuinely picked to be taken out by Negan. But of course, him being the Batman of the Walking Dead universe and him having all of that plot armor, they kept him alive. And as we all know, Daryl developed so much as a character. He became the main poster boy of the whole franchise. And we know that Daryl is really attached to the wilderness, right? He enjoys being outside and alone more than behind the walls. We could see that from Alexandria, right? When the group first goes to Alexandria, Daryl is still basically living like he's outside of the walls, and he genuinely misses outside, which gets him a position as recruiter with Aaron, so he gets to go outside of the walls more. And throughout the show, we've seen that Daryl eats the most random stuff, right? For example, he eats snakes, he eats squirrels, he eats all of these very contaminated things that could be in the wild, that which would give a normal person a stomach flu or potentially even kill them, especially that snake, right, in season 4 of The Walking Dead. So yeah, I know this theory is referring to Daryl potentially being immune because of the amount of things he's ate in the wild, and also in season 9 and 10 of The Walking Dead, when he was out alone looking for Rick. He was out for a couple of months all alone, and he was hunting for himself, and which of course you could get the idea of what did he eat out there. And you know, he's walking like nothing happened and he's not getting sick by it. So yeah, I believe this theory as well, right? I believe this fan theory as well, that Daryl could potentially be immune, and because his immune system got built up to a point where even if he does get bit, nothing will happen to him. And it'd be very interesting if Daryl is the only immune character in the entire show, right? Because we haven't seen a character like this that enjoys the outside world that much, right? That doesn't enjoy being inside at all. This character relies on his survival instinct. This character relies on hunting and eating anything that could come by. And another piece of evidence that could really help this theory out is that Daryl is a blood type O, which is a very rare blood type, and we've seen that at the end of season 11, right? And blood type O is basically compatible with every blood type, which makes it very rare. And also in the real world, it is shown that blood type O, the people that have that blood type, are less likely to contract any virus. So again, if the Walking Dead showrunners are smart with that decision of making Daryl a rare person in general, I think that they could make him immune to the zombie virus because of his blood type. And now the next topic in this tier is Eugene's radio call possibly linking to more communities. And now this theory is referring to Eugene getting into contact with the Commonwealth by using pieces from a crashed Russian satellite to upgrade his radio. That is how he was able to get into contact with Stephanie from the Commonwealth. And now, just to put into reference, the Hilltop is located in Virginia, where the Commonwealth is located in Ohio, and that is about a 720 kilometer distance, which is about 7.5 to 8 hours away, right? Now that's how much the distance is. And for my American viewers, that is about 448 miles away. So it is a very long distance. And so the main theory here is that if Eugene was able to catch a signal from that far away, and it was a pretty clear signal, maybe he contacted some other communities accidentally, and maybe they caught Eugene's signal and probably even heard his conversation with Stephanie. And a lot of states do come in that radius, which is Kentucky, right? Maryland, Pennsylvania, right? Which is basically beside Ohio, right? You could also go all the way up to Chicago, right? West Virginia, Nashville, right? All these places that are in that distance where Ohio is. It is definitely possible that Eugene contacted some communities in those states, which could be a potential storyline in the future of the Walking Dead universe, because During the finale of Season 11, there was a 1-year time jump, and with the Commonwealth set still being up, it is definitely possible that they are going to do the story of some other community coming to invade the Commonwealth because, of course, as we know, the Ones Who Live concluded and the CRM is basically better now. I'm not saying that the CRM still can't be a threat, but it seems very unlikely. And of course, America being so big, it is definitely possible that there are other communities that are like the Commonwealth and are like the CRM that caught wind of Eugene's whole radio transmission. So where everyone thought that Eugene was everyone's savior, it could end up being very bad for the group and it could have big consequences down the road. And now that is it for Tier 2, and now we're going deeper down in the iceberg in Tier 3, which is the deep end. And the first topic in this tier is Fear the Walking Dead finale timeline inconsistencies. Now, this is just mostly referring to Fear being inconsistent in general, right? And I've done some more research about this online, right? Back when Season 8 of Fear was going on, right? Everyone was thinking that, yeah, you know, they aligned themselves with Season 11 of The Walking Dead, which is mostly true, right? You know, if you look at Mo's age, right, she's about 8 years old, so it's about a 7-year time jump from Season 7, which roughly gets them up to Season 11 of The Walking Dead. But the main complaint here is Madison, right? People are saying that Madison does not look like she aged at all from that bridge explosion to now, right? Like when they're doing the whole Padre thing. And also another big inconsistency, which I myself have complained about also in the past, is that Padre and the CRM were not connected whatsoever. Now, of course, in Fear the Walking Dead, we've seen that the CRM were pretty consistent, right? You know, they would keep on showing up and they were an issue for the group in Fear. But ever since Padre was introduced, everyone thought that, yeah, you know, they have some link with it, and also the timelines, they kind of matched up where, like, you know, the Padre would have actually acknowledged the CRM or the Commonwealth, but none of that happened. So, yeah, you know, this is mostly where this topic and this argument comes from, is that because these two organizations did not acknowledge each other, then it creates a big inconsistency. And also with the Walking Dead universe being a whole connected story, people also have the argument that the state of the world does not match up, right? Whereas Fear, all of the characters, they had radios, they had gasoline, they were driving cars, they had a lot of resources in Fear in general, but also especially in Season 8, right? I mean, I noticed that food and all these type of resources were easier to come by in the finale of Fear by this time, right? By that 7 to 8 year time jump. But if you look at The Ones Who Live or Season 11 of The Walking Dead, it seemed like that the world was nearly gone and it was a much more broken place and it was harder to get stuff. That's the reason why the characters even went to the Commonwealth, because they were very scarce on resources. Whereas in Fear, everything was much easier to come by, and it just seemed like a much easier life for those characters in Fear. Now, you know, that could also play into the fact that Fear takes place in Texas, right, where the main Walking Dead show takes place in Virginia and then eventually Ohio. So that could come into factor as well. Maybe different states are in different positions when it comes to resources and stuff like that. But in Fear, it genuinely looks like a 6-year time jump from when the apocalypse first started. And now the next topic in this tier is CRM's Operation Cobalt. Now, Operation Cobalt is a very interesting one, and in my opinion, that topic in general deserves a video in itself, so I'm just gonna briefly explain what this is. Now, in The Walking Dead, The Ones Who Live, it is revealed that Okafor was part of the US military team that bombed Atlanta, and also they bombed Los Angeles as well, where Fear the Walking Dead took place. So we basically got an explanation as to who was behind the bombings in the start of the seasons for the Walking Dead main show, and also Fear the Walking Dead, which was ran by the US military, right? Operation Cobalt was done by the US military, and that was basically just to cleanse the major cities because of the Walker outbreak. And then eventually that sect of the US military eventually became the CRM right after the Civil War, which was mentioned by Major General Beale. And if you really look more into Operation Cobalt, it is very messed up because they arranged these safe zones for civilians. They placed them there, and whoever was left behind eventually got bombed, which we did see in Fear the Walking Dead and also the Walking Dead main show. And eventually, like, we see that those safe zones, for example, Fort Benning, which was one of the safe zones that were not bombed, they got overrun by walkers. So Operation Cobalt ultimately became a failure by the end. And there is a huge list that I'm seeing right over here of places that were bombed because of Operation Cobalt. So I'm just going to be listing some of those down, which are Phoenix, Arizona, California, San Diego, San Francisco, Atlanta, Lincoln, Albany, Manhattan, Portland, Philadelphia, Pittsburgh, Pennsylvania, Austin, Texas, and Seattle, Washington. And from my home country of Canada, the only place that was known that was bombed by Operation Cobalt was Vancouver, British Columbia. And now the next topic in this tier is the Silent Zone Rumor Sealed City. Now, I genuinely could not find anything about this one, right? But I'm just going to try explaining the best to my knowledge, right? The best I could about this whole topic. And we could also relate this back to the CRM in Operation Cobalt, where a silent city could mean that a place that is untouched by walkers and completely safe, and also on top of that, it's completely safe from the outside world, which is the CRM, which they have security and secrecy above all. But you could also look at Dead City, which is in New York, right? That is a dead city overrun by walkers, which is not a safe zone. So like a silent city is of course a place that is genuinely safe for survivors, and throughout the Walking Dead universe, the only place that we really saw that was a silent city was the CRM. And this whole rumor could also point towards other communities like the CRM being at play here, and we could potentially have much more silent cities throughout the Walking Dead universe. And now the next topic in this tier is France being referenced as origin point. Now this one is very obvious, right? This one has been explained in the Walking Dead universe, but they did not dive deep into this topic, and we all thought that Daryl Dixon season 1 was going to give us some answers to this question, which it did not. So I'm going to run it down. Now in the season finale of The Walking Dead World Beyond, in the post-credit scene, we saw France, right? We saw some French scientists, and these are divided into two sects, right? Two teams, Primrose and Violet, which both of them are against each other. And in that scene, we could see in French, which it says, if you translate it, it says, "The dead were born here." And of course, even the team member, I believe from Violet, he says to the Primrose lady, like the scientist, that you're the one that brought this to everyone, right? You're the one that started all this. So it is genuinely accepted throughout the community that the French started this whole virus, right? And they started the zombie outbreak in the Walking Dead universe. And we did not get much of an explanation after that, right? Except for when this scientist was killed in the post-credit scene, she became into a running walker, which was a genuine theory that France had variant walkers who ran. And we did see that in Daryl Dixon, but they needed that injection to become running walkers, whereas in World Beyond, we saw the scientist just become a running walker out of nowhere. And also she was shot in the head, and they were very strong and durable. I hope that we could see more of these walkers in the future, and we could get more of an explanation about Primrose and Violet in the future of The Walking Dead. But with Daryl Dixon season 3 taking place in Spain, and it doesn't look like that they're going back to France, it seems like that this might also go into the dark, like how a lot of other things in the Walking Dead universe have been. And also in this post-credit scene, Dr. Brenner has a cameo in it, and he's basically just explaining how they're running a lot of tests on these walkers to short-circuit the brain and to jumpstart it, and just to find a cure somehow, but they're not getting any progression with that. And it seems like that this recording of Dr. Brenner was taken right before the group entered the CDC in season 1, and also a lot of people thought that the French, right, like France's scientists, were related to the CRM somehow, because of course this is a World Beyond post-credit scene. So everyone thought that, with the CRM running tests on walkers in World Beyond, and also them showing the origin point of the walker virus, It seemed like that the CRM had some sort of link with France and their scientists, but yet again, in The Ones Who Live and also in World Beyond, they didn't really explain that all that well. And also in Daryl Dixon, right, where we thought we would get the answers. But, you know, eventually they did not really give us any answers whatsoever. So, yeah, like how I said before, they left us in the dark in there. But also, there is a potential link to the Commonwealth with these France scientists. Because when this man eventually asks the scientists that, are you part of Primrose? She says, no, I am part of Violet. Then he asks, where is this team, right? Where is Primrose? And she said that they weren't here when it happened. So of course, when the outbreak happened, they weren't in France and they were in Toledo. He asks her, Spain? And she says, no, in Ohio. So yeah, like, you know, eventually we could possibly get some sort of French scientists in some other spin-off, or maybe even in Daryl Dixon season 4, because Spain was also referenced in this post-credit scene. And now we're getting deeper into the iceberg with tier 4, the Abyss. And the first topic of this tier is The Ones Who Live, Rick Grimes' early design. And now this one is simply referencing Andrew Lincoln originally having a different prosthetic arm for Rick Grimes, right? And it seemed like that it was more of a comic accurate arm. You know, there is a picture of this online and I will put it up on the screen right now. And from my understanding, I believe that this was during the finale of The Ones Who Live, but I could be wrong there, right? This could be also throughout the show, and instead of the fist with the blade in it, this could have been the original design for Rick Grimes in the CRM. And now the next topic in this tier is government satellites being controlled by Russia. And now this one is very interesting because first we see in Fear the Walking Dead that while Victor Strand is trying to radio in on somebody on his boat, he connects with a Russian that is part of the Russian space program. And they have a talk for like a couple of minutes and then it gets cut off from there. But then also in season 10 of The Walking Dead, we do see the Russian satellite that crashes down, and Eugene and the rest of the group, they have to go to retrieve some parts to upgrade Eugene's radio system, which eventually gets them to connect to the Commonwealth. And now I do have a few theories about this, right? I believe that maybe there are some more satellites in space that are controlled by the Russian government still, and I'm not too sure if that is the same satellite that Victor Strand got into contact with in Fear, the one that actually crashed down in season 10 of The Walking Dead, which would be very interesting, right? I mean, you have these two shows connecting in that sort of way would be very weird, but also we did not see any sort of body in the rubble of that satellite, so we could genuinely have two different satellites that are being controlled by the Russian government. And you know, just to think about it, the Russian that Victor got into contact with is the only known human being in the Walking Dead universe that is not infected by the zombie virus, and we're not sure if this person is dead yet, right? Because of course the time jump in 78 years, so a lot could change in that, right? Maybe we could get like some sort of a spin-off or something like that that shows that Russian that's in space stranded, and then eventually he dies by hunger, or we could see him crashing down to Earth where the group comes and they collect the rubble, because of course as soon as he gets into the atmosphere he crashes down. I don't think he's going to get infected, nor he's going to turn into a walker by that time. So it'd be very interesting to see the very first human and the only human that died and did not become into a walker in the Walking Dead universe. But also this does raise the conversation of what if the Russian government is still intact, right? And of course we could dismiss this theory by that Russian scientist not being called down or not getting any contact with Earth and not knowing anything about the Walker virus, because of course the Russian government might have collapsed during the outbreak. But it's also very interesting to think that maybe the government is still working in secret and they're still in contact with people up in space just to get pictures of Earth and how did it change throughout time. And now the next theory in this tier is the zombie consciousness theory. And now this theory is a very interesting one, and it has been debated throughout the years throughout the Walking Dead community, but I'm just going to run down some key evidence which could potentially point towards walkers having consciousness in the Walking Dead universe and actually showing proof of emotion and memory of their living selves. And now first of all, I want to talk about where it all began in season 1 of The Walking Dead, and we see that when Rick goes to Morgan's house at nighttime, Morgan's zombified wife comes to the door and she turns the doorknob. And also in The Walking Dead earlier on, right, like back in like season 1, when they had that plan of making walkers smarter, right, we saw them actually turning doorknobs, right, and they were able to grab a rock and hit it against glass when the group was trying to escape Atlanta. And also in season 11 of The Walking Dead, we do see that walkers eventually were able to climb up walls and stuff like that, which was a huge point of the third half of season 11, but it seems like that they're really not doing anything with that whatsoever. And also with Dr. Brenner's whole explanation about the walkers and how they function, it seems like that the brain is dead, but the brain stem is still active. And complete death means that, you know, the body won't move whatsoever, but there is some sort of brain activity in there which allows the walkers to move around and know exactly what their prey is and what exactly do they want to eat. And also, like, you know, some more things about this theory that which could support it is the CRM experiments in general. And in World Beyond, we do see that the CRM want to experiment on fresh walkers, so people that just turned. And also there are some hints and teases and clues that point towards the CRM wanting to experiment on A's, which were Negan, Rick, and Gabriel, where Jada said that Rick was a B, but she was saying that Negan and Gabriel were A's. So back then the theory was that maybe A's had something different in them when they turned into walkers, and potentially they could find a cure through A's. But in The Ones Who Live, they just explained that A's are leaders and they do what they die for. But maybe this could still have some merit in it, because we did not realistically see much A's dying in the Walking Dead universe. So if we see Negan, Gabriel, Ezekiel, Rick, or any of these sort of leader type characters dying, then maybe they could explain what is the real difference between A's and B's, and why do the CRM scientists want them to be bit first before they're captured, and why do they want to experiment on fresh walkers. And also another thing that really came into mind while explaining this theory is that when John Berthel was about to shoot his death in The Walking Dead Season 2, he wanted Shane to actually talk when he turned, right? He wanted him to say Rick's name while coming for Rick, which would have been a huge surprise and a huge twist, right? Because Shane was the first person that turned into a walker right after being shot without being bit. So alongside that big moment of Shane turning into a walker, we could have gotten that moment of Walker Shane talking to Rick. And also we saw that Shane's behavior as a walker was completely different. He was moving a bit faster, but that could just be John Berthel being John Berthel. And also because though that was during the earlier seasons of The Walking Dead, where walkers were a bit smarter and they were more of a threat, but later on in the show they became less of a threat and more of a nuisance for the characters. And now we're done with tier 4. Next stop is tier 5, which is the depths. And now the first topic of this tier is early drafts virus was alien in origin. And now this topic is referencing the space spores theory, which was actually started by Robert Kirkman in a tweet. When a fan asked him what is the origin of the zombie virus in the Walking Dead universe, he replied by saying space spores. And also Robert Kirkman stated that early drafts of the Walking Dead comic had the Walker virus being alien in nature, but that was just only to get the comic greenlit. And this theory basically suggests that the virus is alien in nature and it came from space, and maybe some sort of astronaut or scientist got a hold of it, they came down to Earth, and then of course the Walker virus got spread from there. But space spores are a gas, so maybe it just descended from space onto Earth, and that's how the Walker virus is in the air. But this was deconfirmed by Robert Kirkman, and he confirmed that it was only a joke. But this theory is very interesting, and I saw somewhere on Reddit that people are saying that, you know, if the Walker virus is alien in nature, then isn't The Walking Dead technically an alien invasion, which is hilarious to me. But even though this theory has no merit to it, because it was confirmed that the Walker virus virus originated in France, it could definitely explain the fact that the CDC, Dr. Brenner, the CRM soldiers, none of them could really crack the code on this virus, right? They've never seen anything like this virus, and of course with the outbreak being about 15 to 16 years long, right, since the start of the show, still no one is able to find any sort of cure, which if it was extraterrestrial in nature, then it would definitely make sense that why they're not able to find any sort of cure, because it is nothing that has been seen on Earth. And now the next topic in this tier is Lori being a walker deleted scene. And now in season 3, episode 10 of The Walking Dead, there is a deleted scene of Lori as a walker, and this is when Rick goes completely insane after Lori's death. He walks out of the prison and then he sees Lori in a white dress, like how he's been seeing her throughout that season. He has a moment with her and then she turns into a walker right in front of his eyes, and of course this is another illusion in front of Rick, right? So he just walks away from there, but this scene could be easily found online and you guys could check it out, but I don't understand why this scene was deleted. Maybe just like for some runtime issues or something like that, or just they saw it as something that they did not need to add, but it is very interesting when you look at it. And now the next theory I want to talk about in this tier is coma theory. And now this theory has been a very long-running theory in the Walking Dead community, and people still talk about it for some reason. I don't know why, but the theory here is that Rick Grimes is still in a coma after the premiere of the show, which is in season 1, episode 1, where Rick goes into a coma after being shot, and then he wakes up from his coma and he sees that the world is completely destroyed by walkers. And now the theory here is that Rick Grimes is still in his coma, and everything that's happened in the Walking Dead universe has been a result of his coma. So basically what I mean by that is that Rick's doctor in the hospital is Negan, where of course he doesn't like the doctor or something like that. So Negan is the doctor, Maggie is his nurse, and Glenn is the pizza delivery guy who just came in the room to deliver pizza for Shane or something like that. And I don't think this theory has any merit to it whatsoever. I mean, yes, in the early days of The Walking Dead, when they didn't develop much and a lot of things were unexplained about this universe, yeah, it could have made sense that, yeah, everything is still part of Rick's coma. But we're so far into the universe now, which I don't believe in, and if they were to do something like this, for example, in the crossover spin-off, at the end we just suddenly see Rick Grimes just wake up from his coma back in season 1. He looks around and he's like, what the hell has this happened? I think that would be very stupid, and it'd be a very bad ending to this universe. And yeah, like, I've seen online that a lot of people do not like this theory, myself included. I don't like it, and it is very unlikely to come true, but if it does, then they're getting a lot of backlash for this. But one thing we can pull from Rick's coma in The Walking Dead, if they really want to link it back there and make that a very big part of Rick's life, is that if they were to make Rick Grimes immune, and the way that they could explain that is that Rick was in between life and death, right? That's basically what a coma is. It's between life and death, and because of Rick's coma, he's immune to the virus because he was technically dead while the virus was still in the air, so that would basically make him immune somehow. I don't know, I heard this somewhere online, and a lot of fans are saying that, Rick Grimes could be immune because of his coma in season 1, so I just want to throw that out there as well. And now the next topic in this tier is prototype smart walkers from France. And now this is going back to the World Beyond post-credit scene in France, and also the zombie consciousness theory, where the zombies could be conscious because they're slowly evolving. That's basically what this theory is, right? Because France is ground zero for the outbreak and that's where it originated from, maybe there could be smart walkers in France as well. And one big evidence of that is the scientist that became a walker, right? She was shot in the head and then she got up and she ran and she started banging a door with such force that it bent, right? It was like a steel wall or something something like that, and she was banging it and it started to dent. So that's where a lot of people get this from, is that, you know, if we could get running walkers straight from death, maybe there could be smart walkers, and France could be developing some sort of smart walkers. And going back to the zombie consciousness theory, we've seen them turning doorknobs, climbing up walls and stuff like that. So genuinely the walkers could be evolving, and there have been hints and teases throughout the Walking Dead universe that, yeah, the walkers are evolving, even through the CRM and even in France as well. And now let's get into the final tier, which is tier 6, the Void. And now the first theory in this tier is theory that Breaking Bad is The Walking Dead's prequel. And now this theory has been thrown around a lot in the Walking Dead community, and also I made a video about this theory on my channel, which I will link on the title card on the top right. But basically what this theory suggests is that Breaking Bad is a prequel to The Walking Dead, and there is a lot of evidence to this, right? Because in The Walking Dead in season 2, when the group is looking for Sophia, Daryl brings out Merle's medicine bag, and we could clearly see Walter White's blue sky is in that bag. And again, it is a Breaking Bad thing, right? In the real world, I don't think that drug could be any color than white or clear. So blue specifically, and also these two being AMC properties, it is very well possible that Breaking Bad could have some sort of connection to The Walking Dead. And also throughout The Walking Dead, we do get some more references to Breaking Bad, such as when Daryl is talking to Beth, he mentions a tweaker, a scrawny guy who got into a fight with Merle and points a gun at him and says, "I'm going to kill you, bitch." So, you know, that is something that Jesse would say in Breaking Bad. And also in Fear the Walking Dead, we do hear the Heisenberg song, which is played in Breaking Bad as well. And there is a huge theory about this, that maybe the blue sky drug that is made by Walter White is the source of the virus. And I did explain this in my previous video about this theory, is that during the finale of Breaking Bad, which was the final season, the 5th season of Breaking Bad, Jesse was captured and he was forced to cook Walter White's product. And because Walter White had a huge rule about no contamination and keeping everything clean, of course we saw that Jesse was in a really bad state. Everything was very dirty, it was out in the open, it wasn't really cooked with care. So that means that with the drug being mixed with some sort of other bacteria or something like that, that's what created the Walker virus, and Patient Zero could have been a person using Walter White's product. But there are a lot of inconsistencies with this theory, such as during Breaking Bad, we see Jesse, Badger, and Skinny Pete talking about video games. That's where they mention Resident Evil 4 and also the word zombie, which we know in the Walking Dead universe, the word zombie or even zombies don't even exist prior to the apocalypse. So no one calls them zombies. The word zombie is not even a thing. Like Resident Evil 4, Night of the Living Dead, like all of these franchises technically don't even exist in the Walking Dead universe, which is one major blow to this theory. And also just a Better Call Saul's timeline and all of that, the whole time jump after the finale of Breaking Bad, that is another huge inconsistency for this theory really coming true. And now the next topic in this tier is the Necronomicon. And for those who don't know, the Necronomicon is the Book of the Dead, which is part of the Evil Dead universe, and it is wielded by Ash Williams. And throughout the movies, we see that Ash uses the Necronomicon, and the Necronomicon has shown up in a lot of other pieces of media, The Walking Dead included. And we see in Rick's final episode in Season 9, Episode 5 of The Walking Dead, Rick goes into a very familiar looking cabin, and once he goes inside that cabin, he sees a few dead bodies, including the Necronomicon, and he also sees a deer head on the wall. And of course, this is just a simple nod to Evil Dead, which I'm a huge fan of, and it was very nice seeing this Easter egg of the deer head, which was in Evil Dead 2, who talks to Ash. And while Ash clearly goes insane, he's just dancing around the cabin and stuff like that, but it seems like in this universe, what if Ash used the Necronomicon to put a stop to the zombie virus, and that's why it's there, and a corpse is holding the Necronomicon, so that could very well be Ash Williams. So technically we got an Evil Dead and Walking Dead crossover in Rick's final episode, which is very cool. And now the next topic in this tier is PPP card origin. And now the PPP card is one of the biggest mysteries in The Walking Dead, which started off in Heath's last episode, which I will get into later on. We've seen it in Tales of the Walking Dead, we saw it in The Ones Who Live, and most recently we saw it in Daryl Dixon's Season 3. And now, before The Ones Who Live, everyone had a lot of theories about the PPP card ever since Heath's last episode. And the long-standing theory here is that whoever's taken by the CRM is left without a trace except for a PPP card. So everyone thinks that the CRM leaves these cards after taking somebody. And in The Ones Who Live, it's basically explained that the PPP card is CRM related, and in Major General Beale's office we do see a board and it says PPP exception, and above that it says reclamation. And I have a theory about the PPP card. I made a video about this right before this video, so you guys could go check that out as well, because I dive deeper into the whole PPP theory. But basically what I think is that PPP is a signal that a CRM agent is here, right, in this community. And of course, after Major General Beale's echelon briefing, it is revealed that there are different CRM agents undercover that are in different communities, and this PPP card could reference that whoever gets kidnapped, there is a CRM agent in the place of that person. And now the real world meaning for PPP is Priority Placement Program. And in the real world, this basically means that some military agents or personnel, they get priority over other applications. So if you really look into that, yeah, you know, this could be some sort of placement program from the CRM into different communities, and the PPP card is some sort of indication that the CRM is here. And also in Major General Beale's office, right above PPP exception, we see reclamation. So that could mean that people with this PPP card are coming to basically make the areas better, right? To claim these areas, to cultivate them into like being a part of the CRM. And now the next topic in this tier, which directly goes hand to hand with the previous one, is Heath's fate unknown. And now, as we saw in Heath's final episode in the Walking Dead main show, we see that a PPP card is left there, right? And Tara picks it up and she just looks at it, and they don't explain anything about that afterwards. But now that we have some more information that the PPP card is left by the CRM, and also I believe Angela Kang and a lot of other showrunners have teased the fact that Heath was kidnapped by the CRM and Jadis traded him off to the CRM. It's definitely possible that he's either a consignee in the CRM or he was just a Walker experiment, right? Maybe Jadis got him bit right before she got him kidnapped by the CRM, which is a very sad fate for Heath. But there are a lot of theories that Heath is potentially still alive and he's possibly a CRM soldier. Now, everyone thought that he was going to show up in The Ones Who Live, but he wasn't in that show whatsoever. And like a lot of people are saying that he could still be a consignee, or after Rick changed the CRM, he possibly found his own path and he was able to escape the CRM, or he could potentially be a high-ranking officer. But I do think that Heath is going to return in the Walking Dead universe one way or another, and that's because his ending was so abrupt, and they of course teased that Jadis might have actually traded him off to the CRM, especially after in Season 8, because we saw that Jadis had a lot of supplies and she was linked with the CRM pretty closely. All they needed was just an A. So yeah, it's definitely possible that Heath could return as that one CRM link, and potentially he could be the one that comes back to the Commonwealth or Alexandria to warn the group about some sort of CRM uprising within the government. And now the final topic of this iceberg is Rick's original fate in The Ones Who Live. And now this one is very interesting because after The Ones Who Live concluded with its series finale, there were a lot of pictures that were circulating the internet of Rick Grimes with an alternate look, and a lot of people do believe that this is linked to an alternate ending for The Ones Who Live. And we see that Rick has burn marks on his face, and this is clearly from the final episode of The Ones Who Live. And a lot of people say that it was because of the bomb explosion, right? Like the grenade explosion where Rick tanked it, and he was supposed to get burn marks after that. Or it was some sort of like poison or gas or something like that that caused his face to have those burn marks. And personally, first of all, I believe that it's all due to rushed filming, right? Because after looking at The Ones Who Live's finale, right, that final episode, in my opinion, and I've said this a lot of times in my channel, that finale was very rushed and it was very, very underwhelming. I am not happy with the finale of The Ones Who Live because a lot wasn't explained about the CRM, and it was a very happy ending. Even though they left the door open for a season 2 or some sort of follow-up for this show, right? They're just not doing anything with it, right? And it's just a complete happy ending right now. After Rick and Michonne defeat the strongest military in the world, they change it and then they just come back to Alexandria without any repercussions. But after seeing these pictures of a potential alternate ending of, apparently, this is what I'm hearing online, and you guys can see the picture right here, it has a caption and everything. It says that this was an alternate ending for The Ones Who Live, just in case if it got leaked, right? They were gonna have Rick Grimes die in the finale, and apparently this is where this look comes from. This is potentially Rick dying from that explosion or something like that, or maybe Beale was still alive and he gets the upper hand on Rick, which, you know, he ends up looking like that, and then, like, you know, it's just the end from there, right? Which is a very dark ending and a very weird way to take out Rick Grimes, but it makes sense that they would film some sort of alternate ending for The Ones Who Live, just in case it got leaked, because season 1 of Daryl Dixon and also season 1 of Dead City had this big problem where basically the whole season got leaked. So this is what AMC was possibly doing, is that they shot multiple endings for The Ones Who Live. Maybe one of them, Rick Grimes dies, right? And so just in case if the real ending gets leaked, right, Rick reuniting with Judith and RJ, that's where they shove in this scene that, oh yeah, okay, you guys thought that Rick was gonna have a happy ending? No, we're gonna have him die in the finale, right? So I'm not sure how true this is, right, how true this caption is, but, you know, we see multiple pictures of Andrew Lincoln with this look, so I just think that this is just a product of rushed filming and very last second decisions, because again, even though it's very cool, right? It's one of the most badass moments in The Walking Dead where Rick was surrounded by walkers, he turns on a grenade, right, and then it blows up and he tanks it completely. I think that if they were to go a little realistic, I think he would have some sort of burn mark on him or some sort of limb being amputated because of that. But I personally just believe that they don't want to give Rick Grimes this look consistently, right? So they are thinking, or they had some sort of plan that, yeah, you know, if we have Rick Grimes show up in the future of The Walking Dead in some sort of spin-off or a season 2 for The Ones Who Live or something like that, it would be very hard just to put the makeup on for Andrew Lincoln, who is a primary character for the Walking Dead universe. So in my opinion, I think that it's just a product of that very last second decisions and them being kind of lazy. But at the end of the day, I'm happy that they didn't go for this look, but the more realistic decision would have been this one. But it's very interesting to think about this potential original ending, this alternate ending for The Ones Who Live, because the real ending for The Ones Who Live already had enough backlash enough, right? Me personally, right? I'm the biggest Rick Grimes fan ever, right? I wanted this character to return for so long, right? He's my most favorite character of all time. But even that ending of The Ones Who Live really left me bitter. Even though they left a door open for potential storylines in the future regarding Rick Grimes, I just wasn't happy with it. But if they went with this alternate ending, I think it would have pissed off more people than it already has. So in my opinion, I am very happy that they didn't go with this alternate ending. And if it is true, it would have been a very dark ending, and if they shot it, it's probably somewhere deep in AMC's archives, and maybe we might get to see it in the future, but as of now, I don't think we're going to see it anytime soon. But yeah, that concludes The Walking Dead Iceberg, and this is possibly my most ambitious video, right? I've never done anything like an iceberg before, so I hope you guys enjoyed it, right? I enjoyed making it. I had a lot of fun researching these topics and stuff like that, and just in case if you guys are wondering, this iceberg that you guys see was made by my brother, right? So all these topics were taken from different sources, different icebergs, and just different theories, and just plopped right in there into a custom iceberg that he made for this video. So shout out to my brother. He put in a lot of work into this video, and yeah, this was a very long video, so I hope you guys enjoyed that, and please comment down below what topics did you guys like, what theories did you guys like, and what theories do you guys want me to talk about that are from this iceberg, because I know that I could not make like a 3-4 hour video explaining each topic one by one, so I tried making it as brief as possible. So if you guys want a full video on these topics, for example Operation Cobalt or something like that, please comment down below. And if you guys want to see any other topics explained, please let me know in the comment section down below. And if you guys want me to make more icebergs in the future, let me know. And yeah, I had a lot of fun making this. It was a joy to make this, and just to research some topics that even I didn't know about. So thank you guys once again for watching. But yeah, that's it for today's video. I'd like to ask you all to like, share, and subscribe. And again, thank you guys so much for the growth. Thank you guys so much for the support. I really, really appreciate it. And I'd like to ask you all to like this video as much as you guys can. It helps a ton. But yeah, other than that, thank you guys so much for watching.